I hate subscriptions. I made a whole video about how I got off of 90% of the subscriptions that I was on. It was a great idea. One, because I saved a lot of money. And two, it's because I sort of felt myself becoming more engaged with the things that I was consuming. A subscription to Netflix makes it so easy to just throw something on. But when you're choosing to buy a DVD or even find a movie for free online or go to your library to pick up a DVD, you probably aren't going to just pick up The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. Or you might, but at least then you'll know you're picking it up because you want to watch it. You're not just throwing it on in the background while you play Baldur's Gate 3. You're saying to yourself, I am the sort of person who just loves to watch Sister Wives. And that's okay. The process did have some growing pains, but I was surprised by how quickly I adapted. There was one subscription I really struggled to let go of, though. The thing is, I like music. It's this art form where people play instruments to create a composition of notes that is pleasing to the ear. You may have heard of it. It's kind of underground. I listen to a lot of music, a lot of new music. I am one of the people who I read Pitchfork reviews. I am one of the guys going in, and it's like a real hobby for me. It is not just something that I throw on the way to work. I like to find new music. I like to recommend music to people. I like to get music recommended to me. So the idea of losing access to more or less every song, album that exists in the world, free and easy. I mean, not free, but I didn't have to pay more for the more albums I listened to. I used Spotify a lot, and I got a lot out of it. And I did consider keeping it because there were some subscriptions that I kept because I like them and I think they're good and it's worth it to me. So I considered keeping it, but well, one, Spotify sort of famously pays artists like less money than all the other major music streamers. On top of that, there are legit allegations about them padding out their popular playlists with their own stock music and maybe even some AI generated music generated by Spotify, which shrinks the amount of money getting paid to artists even more because the less plays those artists are getting from real artists are getting from those playlists, the more of the money Spotify can just keep. And some of the artists I like just aren't going to be realistically making much money off of Spotify because they're very small or they are making interesting stuff that I think is worth money and worth paying for, but is not like the sort of thing that you're going to play over and over and over again. This album by Miffle, I think it's incredible. I had like a emotional experience listening to it, but it doesn't have bops. It is not going to be like on a playlist. It's not going to be on repeat. It's like 50% white noise. Miffle is not making a ton of money on Spotify, is my assumption. But if enough people bought the album, maybe they could make a living doing this. And so I think there is like a real argument that by making the marketplace for this art into a thing that values replayability and broad appeal to such a degree that like the main way people listen to music is through streamers, I think it devalues and makes it harder to make art that is maybe more interesting and more, I don't want to say more interesting, but different in a way that just doesn't work on the streaming platforms and could theoretically work in a world where we're all buying albums. I genuinely think this album is worth $20. And it is, you can buy it for $1 on Bandcamp. And I mean it when I say I think it's worth $20. I think that's, I think if you went and bought it for $1, that'd be a great deal. Like every other tech company, they are selling your data. Spotify, I mean, it's just the same problem that there is with every major tech company, which is that they view like music, art, everything as like a commodity to be leveraged for money, to be exploited. And as a guy who like, I'm at my most happy kind of getting like knocked around at a punk show, it doesn't feel good to like interact with art in a way that feels so like, so little of it is going to the artist, there's like less of a, it's less visceral in some sort of weird way when you have access to all of this stuff and you're just listening to playlists and you're not curating yourself at all. You're like just letting the algorithm go. So they are just bad for music, and I believe that, and I love music, and so I'm like, maybe I should get off of it, but it is really convenient, and I do use it a lot and listen to a ton of music. And I mean, all this stuff is bad, but it's not like the CEO is investing huge amounts of money into an AI military tech firm. Anyways, time to take a nice big sip of my coffee. I thought a lot about a line from an interview with Stu McKenzie as I was like debating whether to quit Spotify. He's the frontman of King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, and they fully took their music off Spotify in protest. They are like literally losing, income money from themselves to take their stuff off because they disagree with what the CEO is doing, and I'm sure some of the other stuff I've talked about.
We've done a lot of different things over the years, but sometimes you just forget that you have free will. You can do whatever you want. I admire the courage to do the thing that is different and also right. And I
think that is something that I struggle with. I often get locked into this sequence of doing the same thing over and over again and making my life worse without like really putting in thought. And it is easy to just choose to do something different, and it might be harder, and maybe I'll go through this whole process and it won't be great, and I'll like end up crawling back to Spotify. But I don't know, it would just feel cowardly to not even give it a shot when other people are putting themselves a lot more out there and like endangering their actual income when I could be potentially saving money. It doesn't feel great to just keep doing Spotify just because it's convenient. Like, yes, it's nice to be able to listen to the new 2 Chainz album the second I hear about it. But on the other hand, there's my sense of like, what is morally right? And the new 2 Chainz album is good, but I pulled the plug. No Spotify, rebuilding my entire music library from scratch. Well, I kind of. So Spotify legally has to give you your data if you ask for it, which is great. That should be the law, and it is the law. And you do have to go in and request it through your account. And then for some reason, it takes them it could take up to a month. It took them like 7 days for them to eventually email me a JSON file, which is a file full. It means it takes a little more finagling, but you can, using like Excel or some other program, pull that data out in a way that is very like you can go through and read and see more easily than in the actual JSON file. So I didn't have to go through and write down all like 1,800 bands I had favorited. I then downloaded Music Bee for my computer and Power Amp to sort of track and sort my MP3s and play them on my phone and computer. And I started putting the money that I saved on subscription directly towards artists that I love. There's a lot of music that you can find free online. For instance, King Gizzard, after taking their music off Spotify, have put all 27 of their albums on Bandcamp as pay what you can. I am paying for them, but I'm not paying $10 per album because I can't afford to pay $10 per album. And I think it's very kind of them to have given the opportunity to have cheap music at the start of this whole process. I've got intentions I've started talking to friends about this sort of whole process, and I'm gonna buy one of those like little CD drives, possibly secondhand, and start ripping like old CDs. I've been talking to like family members who have old CDs and friends of mine who have bought CDs because they're like really big fans of this musician, and I'm like, oh, they're offering to lend me albums that I can rip onto my computer, and it gives me an opportunity to sort of do something communal and talk about music with my friends, which is great. It's already like really positive. I'm already getting something out of it that I feel like Spotify is sort of blocks you out from. I do miss having access to every song and album I've ever loved. Like it was nice to be able to very quickly go from listening to, Radiohead to La Russell. And my library right now is tiny comparatively. I have like 9 or 10 albums, and there are hundreds and hundreds in my Excel sheet. But I do think it's worth it because, not just because I think Spotify is bad for music and that the CEO is doing stuff that I find morally reprehensible. I think Spotify was bad for me. Okay, it's time for my old man yelling at the sky moment. I feel like tech companies have made a lot of money by making life as frictionless as possible. Like, you can order your groceries online, have them shipped directly to your door, never interact with a human being. You can let an algorithm pick your movie for the night, your song for the morning when you wake up. You can basically get through life doing as little thinking and having to figure things out and that kind of stuff as possible. And I do think that is bad for your brain. I think you are losing the ability to choose for yourself, to problem solve, to when I switched off of Spotify, I had to figure out how to, sort my music, how to run this program. I am like, oh, I want to find this album. I have to find it online. There's these little pieces of friction that are annoying. And I understand it does seem like I'm just making my life harder for no reason. But I do think that those little bits of friction help you help you think better. They help make you smarter, help make your brain go. And I can feel it when the difference between finding music now and finding music before, when I was on Spotify, is the lack of instantaneity, because it's not so quick and easy. It feels better. There's something, I don't know how to put it. It's like the same thing as once you've gotten into exercising and you go for a run and you come back and you're like, I am in pain, but it feels good. It's like the same thing as it feels good to work the brain in these little ways that don't have a huge consequence of I'm going to lose my job if I fuck this up, or I'm going to, someone's going to get hurt. It's just nice to do. And I don't want to make anybody who continues to use Spotify feel bad. I liked and used it for nearly a decade. There's plenty of stuff I do that I think is either morally wrong or bad for me. I'm not the perfect guy. I don't want anybody to think that I'm some genius who's got it all figured out. Because if they did, they'd come and steal my secrets.